You may know Charlie Nicholas as the sharp-suited bloke that sits next to Phil Thompson on Gillette Soccer Saturday, offering up insightful analysis such as, "I'm a strong believer that if you score goals, you win matches." But younger readers may not realize what a player he was, and what a playboy he was. Charlie Nicholas earned the nickname, Champagne Charlie, because he loved to party. Nicholas played for Arsenal, scoring twice against Liverpool in a famous 2-1 win in the League Cup final in 1987. In a professional career spanning 18 years, he scored goals wherever he went, from Celtic to Arsenal to Aberdeen, and scored 5 times in 20 caps for Scotland. While his time at Arsenal cemented his reputation as one of football's great mavericks, it was a spell that didn't quite hit the heights that were expected of him, even though he scored both goals in a 2-1 League Cup final win over Liverpool in 1987. Still, Nicholas nevertheless made his mark on both sides of the border, as you'll discover here. The young Charlie wasn't the brightest button. Nicholas and education didn't really get on. On the day of his English O-level examination, Nicholas was offered a job at a local garage. Guess what he chose? Nicholas would spend 4 months as a mechanic before throwing himself headlong into his football career. His career was nearly over as soon as it began. Nicholas made his debut for Celtic when he was just 17, scoring in a 3-1 win over Queen's Park in August 1979, but just 18 months later he broke his leg in a friendly game against Morton. "The bottom of my foot was dangling so I could tell it was broken," he recalls. With Nicholas writhing in agony, the club doctor decided against waiting for an ambulance and, instead, took him to hospital in his car. Nicholas began his career with Celtic News Group Newspapers Limited. The Gunners bought Nicholas in 1983 for £750,000. Popular Nicholas soon became the darling of the North Bank, and you had to say 3 Hail Marys and 3 Our Fathers before he would start the car. "I was trying to hold my shin together in the passenger seat thinking, what the hell is going on?" But he recovered in some style. Within a couple seasons, however, Nicholas had recovered and had picked up 2 Scottish Premier League winners' medals and 1 in the Scottish League Cup too. And in 1982-83 he had his career season, scoring 48 goals in 53 games to land both Scottish Players of the Year awards, a call-up for Scotland and, it transpired, a £750,000 move to Arsenal in June 1983. But he struggled to adapt in the capital. Nicholas was just 21 when he moved to Arsenal, but had moved to a club where most of his teammates were married or settled down. With nothing to do, Nicholas would hop in his car after playing on a Saturday afternoon and head north, sometimes to Wolverhampton, sometimes to Blackpool, just to meet friends. Then, on Monday morning, he'd leave early, arriving in time for training. "How I did it I'll never know," he says. Soon as he moved to London, Nicholas became synonymous for his antics off the pitch. Stylish Nicholas would often be seen in London's best nightclubs. In fact, Nicholas would hop in his car and travel to wherever the party was, even if it meant driving to Wolverhampton. He soon found his feet, though. Nicholas was lured in by the many temptations that London had to offer. Tramp nightclub and Stringfellows became regular haunts, as did a brilliantly named Blondes, in Mayfair, where he used to hook up with the legendary George Best. "My God, the women who used to come around him," he recalls. "And sometimes I got the benefit of that." He also trawled the bars of Highgate too, becoming mates with members of the new romantic band Spandau Ballet, some of whom were Arsenal fans. True. And then there were the women. There were no shortage of other admirers. There was the Olympic gymnast Suzanne Dando, the actress in the Cadbury's Flake advert Janice Lee Burns, and the female half of the pop duo Dollar, Theresa Bazar. "He certainly scored a hat-trick with me that night," she told the press. "Thanks for that." The press loved him. Whenever he was in the news, whether it was for his performances on the pitch or his antics off it, Nicholas was a headline writer's dream. News Group Newspapers Limited. Nicholas was never short of female admirers, including Suzanne Dando. News Group Newspapers Limited. Altered Images. Singer Claire Grogan was also a pal of Charlie's. News Group Newspapers Limited. Nicholas modeled for Topshop alongside glamour girl Angie Lane. There was Charles de Gaulle and St. Nicholas. There was Charlie Bubbles and Bonnie Prince Charlie. But it was Champagne Charlie that stuck. When I first started getting called Champagne Charlie, I couldn't afford champagne, I was on the shandy, if I was lucky, he says. But Shandy Charlie is not quite so good, is it? No, you're right. It's not. When I first started getting called Champagne Charlie, I couldn't afford champagne, I was on the shandy, if I was lucky. Charlie Nicholas. And he'd do anything for some media coverage. Charlie Nicholas was always in the press, he even made the cover of music newspaper, the NME. And if the price was right, there was very little he wouldn't do. One photo shoot saw him pose with Page 3 models, with Nicholas dressed in just some minuscule budgie smugglers. He liked a leather trouser. And he didn't even have a midlife crisis as an excuse. He regrets nothing. Nicholas has long believed that the only reason he got his reputation as a hellraiser was because he never wore socks on a night out and because he wore an earring. Mind you, it might also have had something to do with the company he kept too, his drinking buddies being fellow Scots, Frank McAvenny and Mo Johnston. We were all a bit maverick, he suggests. But the only harm we ever did was probably to ourselves, our own reputation, despite his incredible ability.